Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the NExT Kenya status event. NExT Kenya is about enhancing horticultural exports. Our chief guest, the Principal Secretary, Professor Hamadi BOGA, is the Principal Secretary, Crops Development and Agricultural Research, Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives. The Acting Head of EU Delegation to Kenya, Katrin HAGEMANN. Invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this session. We know we had invited you last year for a NExT Kenya event, which we postponed until now. Therefore, everybody is welcome to this particular event. For the program we are going to follow will be as follows. Next slide. I'll make some remarks, and then we'll have a presentation from the chairman of FPEAK, Mr. OWUOR. Then we'll get the context, objectives, and state of play of the NExT Kenya program by Jeremy KNOPS and myself, Chagema KEDERA. Then we'll get remarks from the Kenya and the EU authorities. First, the remarks from Katrin HAGEMANN, and then the remarks from Professor Hamadi BOGA. Then we'll have closing remarks from Clement TULEZI, who is the co-chair of the National Horticulture Taskforce and CEO of Kenya Flower Council. At that point, we'll break up into two sessions. The panelists will go into the press conference, and then we will have a question and answer session before we close the event at 12:30. This is the agenda we are going to follow for today's event. The panelists have been given the contacts for the press conference. For the rest, the question and answer session will remain in the room where you are. NExT Kenya is a program in horticulture, and it is intended to work with all the stakeholders. We will be giving more details as we go through the presentations. And we hope you will remain with us throughout the session until we come to the end of this session, but look forward to engaging with you in the coming days. We will now move to getting remarks from Mr. OWUOR, Chairman of FPEAK and COLEACP board member. Apollo, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. KEDERA, Your Excellency, Madam Ambassador, Honorable Principal Secretary, Professor BOGA, my fellow directors, DG, COLEACP, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So my pleasure to be here with all of us this morning. And on behalf of the fresh produce industry, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for finding time to join in this call. Indeed, COVID-19 is teaching us new ways on how to transact business and how to meet. Today, we are able to cover across various countries and meet within a very short time and interact quite effectively. The Kenya horticulture sector has been and is a leading force in our country's economy for decades. And in terms of foreign exchange earnings, in terms of employment, revenue, and especially revenue for some of our most vulnerable communities, enhancing food security and nutrition. And it gives us this, during these times where we are faced with very disruptive and competitive environment, it is time for us to increase our efforts to ensure we stay ahead of the game in domestic, regional, and the global supply chains. Since the early 20s, the COVID pandemic has had an unprecedented health crisis on the global scale and has put massive pressure on global, regional, and the national health systems and disrupted economies and trade. Horticulture, for both in the enterprises on the medium scale, small enterprises in Kenya have been particularly affected with the COVID outbreak. But somehow with the resilience in this industry, we've somehow managed to overcome some of these unexpected challenges. The conditions can be created so that this crisis leads to new opportunities through increased domestic, intra and interregional and international trade. The Kenya horticulture sector has strong links with the European markets, being the second largest supplier of vegetables from sub-Saharan Africa to the EU, just after South Africa. However, 10 years ago, the European market accounted for just more than 80% of the volume of fresh produce and processed fruits and vegetables exported from Kenya. While today, this has decreased to 50% by volume, but still 70% by value. And this is due to the opening of new markets, increased compliance challenges, and competition from abroad. The new EU sanitary and phytosanitary compliance challenges continue to arise for the Kenyan horticultural industry, in particularly from strengthening the EU plant health rules, such as the new regulation on EU 2016/2031, which are placing increased demands on inspection services and national plant protection organizations, and from the EU regulatory review process, which is leading to the effective loss of crop protection products, affecting the viability and competitiveness of some of our exports. There are also private standards, the commercial standards such as global GAP and the like, which are required by global buyers, are also evolving. And the emphasis in earlier years was literally food safety. And then it evolved later on to social accountability driven by regulatory changes in the main markets, as well as by the need to manage reputational risk in the face of increasing consumer awareness and concern. But now the standards are extending to target environmental and sustainable production in a far more comprehensive way. These trends are requiring producers especially in the African, Caribbean, and Pacific, and exporters and public sector institutions from quality and regulatory infrastructure to be increasingly flexible and dynamic in responding to what is highly diverse market, addressing the phytosanitary challenges in a cost-effective and raising quality standards, among other adaptations. In parallel, the EU has also published new organic regulations, the EU 2018/84 on organic production and labeling of organic products in June 2018. And it is expected that the EC will propose a policy framework supporting sustainable food systems through the new farm to fork strategy. This policy framework should mainstream sustainability in all food-related policies, while addressing the responsibilities of all actors in the food system without questioning the need for more sustainability and the urgency of the situation. This will mean, in practice, from a trade perspective, new requirements to comply with. And we are also faced with the Brexit situation, with the UK leaving the EU customs union and a single market will also significantly change trade dynamics between the EU 27, the UK, and Kenya in the coming months and years. It's still very unpredictable to foresee how that will happen. In addition to regulatory and market compliance challenges, climate change and related disasters on land, natural resources are already having an impact on the industry. The growing impact of drought and unreliable rainfall and changing rainfall patterns are expected to significantly constrain the sector and affect the most vulnerable populations disproportionately. In addition to climate variation, are also bringing new pests and diseases on our crops, which brings us back to SPS compliance issues. Despite these challenges, opportunities exist for the Kenyan horticulture sector in the EU and elsewhere, as there is promising demand on the domestic, regional, and the global supply chains for fruit vegetable products. Recently, the EU has just given us the go-ahead to supply mangoes under certain conditions. We have avocados, the fresh vegetables, and cut flowers, etc. To meet all these challenges and fully exploit the opportunities for the Kenyan horticulture sector, we will have to work together as an industry and invest in our human resource at all stages of the value chains for all types of stakeholders, being from public, private, research, academia, and civil society. The food production and distribution channels are well coordinated, are best positioned to adapt to the changing patterns in demand and take advantage of new business opportunities through diversification, investment, improved technologies and practices, and uptake of innovations such as processing and significant value add potential like dried mangoes and frozen avocados, which will be coming into the mix. And then it is in this context that I'm pleased that the Kenya horticulture sector will benefit from a strengthened partnership with the European Union through the NExT Kenya program supported under COLEACP. The NExT Kenya is part of the EU-Kenya partnership in the agricultural industry, working for sustainable development of Kenya's economy by upgrading horticulture value chains through compliance with EU regulatory and market requirements. If there is one thing we have learned is that we have a resilient sector, and amidst this crisis, we are able to continually engage with our principal partners, competent authorities, and associations. And part of some of the things that we probably would like to see in the future is just the support from the public sector, especially through aspect of levies that would be staying especially on the cost of running businesses. Through some of the levies that we are seeing, we pursue an environment with the public sector, with government especially. And I'm thankful that we have Professor Hamadi with us today in order to address some of these cross-cutting issues, such as high levies that we are seeing in the industry that we could use probably to then support the industry in a completely different way, and probably would look to see how we can engage in order to address some of the conversations that are existing. Our strength lies in our competitive and collective efforts, and hence I'm pleased that the program that we have with the NExT Kenya program will further strengthen the reestablishment of the National Horticulture Taskforce as a public-private platform that will drive communication, innovation, and competitiveness of the industry. As a COLEACP board member, I'm finally proud to mention that Kenya is the country with the highest application rate for COLEACP programs, active since 2001, and with the highest number of members in COLEACP. And to thank you for your attention and work, and to make sure that our horticulture industry contributes to the broader transformation of a resilient, fair, safe, and sustainable agri-food sector and beyond. Thank you very much, Dr. KEDERA.
Thank you, Apollo, for the remarks. And we will now move to Jeremy KNOPS, the COLEACP Director General. Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. KEDERA. Good morning, Madam Ambassador. Good morning, Honorable Principal Secretary, Professor BOGA. Good morning, fellow panelists, directors, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. I'm going to try and provide a bit of context about COLEACP, who we are, what we do, how we do it, and maybe most importantly, why we are active in this line of work. So, as an organization, Apollo just mentioned it. We talk about membership because basically COLEACP, we are a not-for-profit private sector association that was created in the 70s. And our members are producers, processors, traders, off-fruit and veg, so importers in the EU. And all these companies and associations of these companies are within the organization because they basically believe in the same thing. And we are very lucky today in the association to have this group of committed men and women who share this mission of making sure that the fruit and veg sector, the agri-food sector, brings this positive contribution to poverty reduction, food security, nutrition, food safety. And the way we believe and the way we work to contribute to these elements it's by facilitating market access. And market access historically it has been mainly driven towards the EU market access. Today we're talking much more about diversification also in terms of markets. Of course, the EU remains a main export destination, but there are also opportunities on domestic, regional, and some other international markets. And so it's facilitating market access, and it's working through transferring knowledge, skills, competencies, working on those compliance elements, of course, on the regulatory side, but not only. And today it goes beyond a purely regulatory approach. It is about working on the competitiveness, and we believe that this work around improving competitiveness can, and not only can, should be achieved by a widespread adoption of sustainable practices. And this is the whole challenge we're dealing with at the moment. As Apollo said, we have an urgent situation in terms of sustainability, of course, on the different pillars of sustainability. And we need to be able to translate this into very pragmatic approaches for MSMEs to be able to basically improve their business while improving their performance on the environmental and social sides. Our vision is really encapsulated by growing people. And Apollo mentioned it in this investment around human resources. That's where, as an organization, I mentioned market access compliance, and that's where we're really investing. So it's the men and women at all stages of the value chains, and in terms of skills, knowledge, know-hows, and it's adapting all these contents to the different people, the different stakeholders, which are all essential to make these value chains work. For the organization, we have a number of services and a number of areas of expertise. This investment in human capital, of course, is directly within MSMEs, within competent authorities, professional BMOs, but of course it's also only made possible by this extensive network of trainers, experts throughout the countries where we intervene, and notably in Kenya, to be able to provide directly this support. And when we talk about support, we talk about technical assistance, we talk about training, we talk about information, communication, market intelligence, business development, advocacy, in a number of areas. And I believe Apollo drew quite an exhaustive picture in terms of the landscape that the industry is facing today on the food safety, plant health side, but also on the social dimension, on the environmental part, and of course on business development to ultimately also have this direct link between technical assistance, training, and which has to lead to facilitated and more investments, facilitated access to finance. Next slide, please, Mohamed. So this is just a representation of the different programs at the moment the organization is managing. So at the moment there are quite a couple of country programs, and I'm going to switch, of course, NExT program, which is the most important out of the country interventions. But beyond the country programs, we're currently managing two intra-ACP interventions, the Fit for Market programs. As Apollo mentioned, we're active in Kenya since 2001, and it has been since 2001, out of the 50 countries where we're working, the most the the highest recipient of and the most important industry partner in terms of number of members, numbers of partners, numbers of beneficiaries, numbers of support activities throughout the years. And we believe, and this is an element that is particularly important to us, it's the association is regrouping many companies around Sub-Saharan Africa, but also in the Caribbean. We believe in the strength of these exchanges also between countries. And the Kenyan horticultural industry has been a source of inspiration, has been an example for many other countries. And we really believe that it can stay so, and it has to remain so, and it has, hence, echoing the words of Apollo, we are at a crucial point in time. And we really feel that not only as a leading example for other countries in the region, but also on the continent, we have this strengthened link between export value chains and improvement of practices for productions which are sold on domestic markets. Next slide, please, Mohammed. So this is just a representation of the different countries very broadly where we intervene. So we're currently managing 1,000 individual projects. What is an individual project? Well, it starts by an application for support, which is sent to COLEACP relays in the countries of the team. We analyze this. This application can come from an MSME, from a BMO, from a Commons Authority, from a training center, from a research center. We analyze it together, and then we co-create an action plan to further develop the organization. And so this is a bit the representation. As of to date, during the past 5 years, there were over 100 individual projects in Kenya. And of course, the objective with NExT Kenya is to be able to bring this number to the next level in terms of individual support projects. And really make sure that, and this is an opportunity for us, for the industry, to capitalize on many of the developments which have been done on our side throughout the years, but also on the developments which have been done by fellow partners and of course from the industry itself. So we are at a very important point in time, challenging times and disruptive times, and of course the number one priority has to remain the health, security of people. But in any times of crisis and disruptions, we also feel that there are opportunities to drive some changes, maybe in a more effective and in a more rapid way. So in this sense, we'll be looking at these times as also times of opportunities. So thank you. Thank you, of course, to the EU, to the Kenyan horticultural industry for support, for the trust, and I can assure you on behalf of the organisation, the board of directors, the team, that will be 100% committed to make this intervention a successful intervention with impact on the ground. Thank you, Dr. KEDERA. Back to you.
Okay. Thank you. I'll continue with the next part of the presentation. Next slide, Mohammed. So we start with NExT Kenya. And of course, the question is, what is NExT Kenya? And how did it come about? As has been outlined by Apollo and by Jeremy, NExT Kenya came out of a consultative process between COLEACP and the stakeholders to design a program that would actually address the challenges as has been outlined before. And the main objective is to increase the contribution of Kenya's horticulture sector to household incomes. We all know the level of involvement of our people in the horticulture sector. The numbers have been posted out there. It is huge. And therefore, if you improve the value chains, you would definitely be improving on the household incomes. The next aspect is looking at food security, not just looking at what what the incomes are, but are the people also having improved food security? And is the food safe? And is it nutritious? So a combination of increasing the incomes, looking at food security, food safety, and nutrition, and then making sure that there is resilience in addressing the issues, as Apollo has explained. And this must be done in an inclusive way and ensuring sustainability of the horticulture value chains. So this objective is kind of all-inclusive. It is looking at things not in an end to themselves, but looking at how do you create a sustainable process in the horticulture value chains. Next slide. The funding of this next program, and the next is new export trade, is from the 11th European Development Fund. It is going to be over a period of 4 years, starting May 20 last year. And you all know what happened in May 20, COVID also came in place. The budget estimate is 5 million, roughly about 650 million Kenya shillings. And the implementation of the program is going to be based on continuity of the previous activities that have been implemented by COLEACP, the PIP, EDES, FFM, SPS. Of course, PIP, for those of you remember, was to do with pesticide initiative program. There was phase 1, phase 2. EDES was a food safety program, and now we are having Fit for Market SPS. And these aspects look at the sectors, both private and public, because at COLEACP, there is the belief that in looking at any value chain, you have to look at the aspects from both ends, proving the capacity of the private sector, and at the same time, looking at the level of effectiveness of the public sector, such that the two work together. The focus, of course, is on fruits and vegetables, but we also have some aspects that would address issues in the floriculture sector. Next slide. What are the expected result areas? Like I've said, in developing the program, there was a consultative process with the stakeholders, both public and private. So there are the 3 result areas for NExT Kenya program. The first one is looking at the capacities of agribusinesses and business member organization in the horticulture sector to compete, 1, at the domestic front, 2, in the regional market, and 3, international markets. We would like to ensure that the capacities are reinforced, and therefore we'll be looking at good practices in the value chains, access to markets, market intelligence, access to finance, business skills, and looking at the value chain, different value chain approaches. It is important to note here that for businesses to prosper, there has to be the skill set that would help them address the issues. And from the perspective of COLEACP, we have developed a concept that touches on 3 things, on 4 pillars. 1 is the governance. 2 is the operational processes. 3 is the skills and competences. And lastly is communication and relationship dynamics. All these factors play together for effectiveness. So when you start looking at the capacities of agribusiness, you have to look at it from that particular context. Is the governance okay? Are the operational processes functioning? Are the capacities and competences complete? And lastly, what is the relationship between the players in those value chains? The second deliverable or result area is the capacity of the sector's enabling environment is improved. So if the capacity is for the enabling environment is improved, we can then strengthen the competitiveness. And here we are looking at the competent authorities in the horticulture value chain, because we've listed them there: the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service, Pest Control Products Board, Horticulture Crops Development, the Horticulture Crops Directorate under Agriculture and Food Authority, and the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization. Now, again, in these organizations, we will also be looking at the 4 pillars that I have mentioned: governance, operational processes, skills and competences, and lastly, the relationship dynamics and how they relate to what is happening in the private sector. Lastly, is result area is on the bottlenecks that are affecting the competitiveness of the Kenya agricultural exports. Of course, here focusing on the horticulture value chains. And here we're looking at the regulations that are there, looking at the donor environment, ensuring that there is coordination in terms of support that is provided to the horticulture sector, looking at the international and private standards, looking at the Kenyan origin. What is so special about the Kenyan origin? Looking at national marketing and the MSME level marketing. So these are the 3 key result areas which are going to drive the NExT Kenya program. Next slide. So who is expected to benefit? We say the operators that are linked to horticulture value chain. We are looking at the micro, small, medium enterprises. We are looking at consolidators, intermediaries, transporters, farmer groups, cooperatives, outgrowers linked to formal markets. Our take here is that we have to look at the value chains in their entirety, from beginning to the end, and you have to address the challenges that are noted at each stage in the value chain if you are going to be competitive. And therefore, we've designed programs to ensure that those who are playing along those value chains get the support. We have to look at the competent authorities, looking at the interactions at the national level. I've listed them. And then we know that the Kenya policy environment or the agriculture as an industry has been devolved. So we also to look at how do we interact with the county governments in terms of the competent authorities, including the official controls that are applied. Remember, the production may be taking place at a county level, but the regulatory environment is set based on the national level. So how do you create that link? And then we're also looking at support services. There are several organizations that do provide support to the sector. We have to look at the consultancies, producer organizations, professional associations, education institutions. When you look at the capacity that is available for horticulture, is it only available from the universities? Are there tertiary institutions that are there? What vocational trainings are available in the system that can actually provide support to enhancing the capacities within the horticulture value chains? We'll also be looking at extension service, logistics, and also freight organization. So in all, we are saying there has to be a strong link on a value chain, among the value chain actors from beginning to the end. The indirect support would also, of course, look at those that are involved in purchasing, processing, and retail companies, consumers, consumer associations, and rural communities. And then, of course, we are saying the MSMEs that may be in the flower sector via the professional associations. But all these things have to be brought together, and there has to be an understanding among the stakeholders. And therefore, coordination between BMOs and the stakeholders will need to be reinforced. And that's why we talk about the public and private sector engagement through the National Horticulture Taskforce. Next slide. So our approach on all these is going to be informed by COLEACP proven track in terms of implementing programs. First, it has to be demand-driven. If we are going to get involved in any activity, is there demand for it? We will not be doing an activity for the sake of it. There has to be a demand and a commitment to ensure that whatever is being requested is based on some statistics, data of some sort. Then we will capitalize on our previous programs and outputs. If you've done something before and there is a demand, how is addressing this issue informed by previous interventions? Did they work? Did they fail? And so how do we then drive this process? We also look at holistically in terms of any issue we will address. It will not be addressed in isolation. You have to look at what is the multiplier effect and how does it encompass what is required, for example, in a value chain. And then we would approach it from a representative way. We know if you list the horticulture value chains that are available in the country, there are several. And therefore, we will pilot on certain value chains and not focus on everything. Start small, get results, and then look at how you can enhance that or apply it to the other value chains. And then also we look at if an activity that will be implemented, what is the impact? Does that have an impact on the whole value, horticulture value chain? So that is what will inform our approach in terms of implementation of the next program. Next slide. So I've talked about starting in May 2020. We know as a country, we were facing the COVID-19 measures, which meant restriction in terms of movement, restriction in terms of what you can do, restriction in terms of certain engagements. We know the government was gracious enough to allow movement within the horticulture sector. But then as the director has put it, and as the director has put it, some of these activities involve the human health aspect. And therefore, this was very critical in terms of consideration when we started implementing the program. Next slide. We are looking at the MSMEs, producer groups, and service providers. What did we do? We started to pivot towards online trainings, and where possible, provided physical training, but mostly focusing on online trainings. And this is where the previous experience with FFM SPS was very critical, because a number of programs had been developed, and therefore it was easier for us to start pivoting online trainings for the MSMEs. The other thing was to put the SMEs through survival boot camps and coaching to ensure business continuity despite what the COVID measures entailed. We provided COVID-19 trainings, how to function under the COVID-19 trainings. And then we started the process of designing remote action plans remotely with the number of implementing partners. So whether you're talking about BMOs or competent authorities, we designed a program where we engage with them in order to start the process of designing action plans. For BMOs, we prepared policy briefs on COVID-19 from the perspective of the Kenya horticulture industry, what was needed to do, of course, sharing the experiences from other parts of the world and sharing with them in terms of facilitating them to continue with the process. We also started a process of formulating a response. In terms of the EU interceptions, false codling moth has become a big challenge to a number of exporters. I think if you are to look at capsicum and look at the Ross exports, the biggest challenge as of today with the EU market is the false codling moth. So we've started a coaching session to enable the exporters manage false coding moth to the extent that it does not become an issue in on exported products, particularly with ROSES. We've also developed a framework for collaboration with FPEAK, FPC Kenya, Kenya Flower Council, and Avocado Society of Kenya. And we are starting the process of getting to the implementation stage of the activities. And here we indeed thank these associations. They have been engaged with us very positively to identify the areas where they require support. Like I did mention earlier, when the next program started, was to start first to inform the agenda. We engaged with these associations, and they're still on board with us, and we are indeed very grateful. Next slide. Under the enabling environment and competent authorities, we've worked hard to reestablish the National Task Force on Horticulture. This is bringing together the public and private sector entities, and it is aimed at providing a coordination mechanism on strategy and policy issues to ensure that the challenges or bottlenecks facing the industry are addressed. Through this national task force, we have started the study on the bottleneck study to look at the competitiveness of the Kenyan horticultural exports. A TUR was prepared, shared with the task force. They have looked at the inception report, and this process has started. And this is an open engagement to ensure that any aspect that may be affecting the competitiveness of the horticulture sector is addressed, and addressed to the fullest. The membership of the National Horticulture Task Force takes on board, like I said, the public and private sectors, including representation from the county governments. The other thing that we've started is development of good practice guides for avocado. If you look at the exports data, avocado is now a major fruit in terms of exports. So we are developing a good practice guide, which is intended to look at the practices right from production, looking at wherever packaging, at pack house and export. So what are the best practices that can be applied in the value chain by the stakeholders? Development of good practice guide involves all the stakeholders. The process entails ownership of the process, understanding of the process, to make it easier for all the stakeholders to apply the measures, be it a large-scale exporter or a small-scale exporter. Then we're also looking at the beans and the peas value chain, where we know we face a number of challenges. So development of good practice guides has also been initiated. In terms of support to competent authorities, we worked with the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service in addressing the EU health safety audit, which was undertaken last year, and this has partially informed the action plan that we will be pushing forward with KEFIS. We've also provided training on pest surveillance and implementation of official controls, and a number of other activities that relate to the functioning of the National Plant Protection Organization are ongoing. Consequently, we've developed a framework with KEFIS, basically looking at how we can assist KEFIS to become more effective in terms of providing support for the private sector for all exported horticulture products. So this means looking at the standard operating procedures, training of the inspectors, surveillance for the value chains, including the documentation processes. There is also PCPB, where we are looking at the registration of the PPPs, looking at the quality control aspects with them, and also some trials that may be necessitate registration of more products for use in our environment, knowing very well that our environment is good for pests, and therefore use of pesticides becomes inevitable, but if they are used, they have to be used in a correct way. And then looking at the Horticulture Development Directorate, we are looking at working with them in terms of the activities of risk profiling, looking at issues of quality controls in a number of value chain, and also the marketing of some of our products. And then Carol looking at how they can contribute in terms of the research. They have established plant doctor clinics across the country, how this can be enhanced to support the horticulture value chains. Next slide. To do all this, COLEACP has moved forward and established an office in Nairobi, which is located in Libon Center, and a dedicated website in order to provide the support that is needed for the sector. Thank you for listening. We will now move to, I think next slide, please. We will now move to getting remarks from Her Excellency Katrin HAGEMANN, the acting head of delegation at the EU. Welcome, Katrin.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for having me. Distinguished guests, dear PS, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm indeed honored to be here today, be here with you virtually to join you as we welcome this first year of collaboration through the NExT Kenya program, which is an outstanding illustration of the dynamic partnership that exists between the European Union and Kenya. Agriculture, and in particular horticulture, is a key sector of mutual importance and benefit to both Europe and Kenya. The EU-financed NExT Kenya program specifically works to increase the contribution of Kenya's horticultural sector to household incomes and to improve food security, food safety and nutrition by increasing the resilience, inclusiveness and sustainability of the country's horticultural value chains. This €5 million program further aims to enhance the capacity of various stakeholders to adapt to evolving sanitary and phytosanitary, commercial, social, and environmental facets at the local, regional, and international markets. Europe remains Kenya's major horticultural export trade destination. With a population of around 506 million, it is the largest trading bloc in the world. Europe thus remains a lucrative and worthwhile market for horticultural produce. Agricultural exports are key development enablers through job creation and increased revenues, especially among groups such as rural women who have few alternative income-generating opportunities. However, there still remains need to build on advances made in the export sector by disseminating knowledge and skills on aspects such as SPS compliance, social empowerment, and environmental protection, so that there are also benefit production for dynamic local and regional markets. In this context, we are delighted to join forces with COLEACP and all stakeholders of the NExT Kenya program to promote and strengthen a number of areas crucial to the agri-food sector and rural development in Kenya. In particular, I would like to welcome the engagement between the public and private sectors in Kenyan horticultural value chains, an engagement that is geared towards collectively addressing the various emerging bottlenecks. It is also encouraging to note that the priorities of NExT Kenya program have been informed by a detailed consultation process with key stakeholders from both private and public sectors. I think this was indeed a commendable way to start off the program and is worth emulating. I'm informed that today, after 1 year of implementation of the program, and despite the COVID-19 pandemic, we can already welcome the first concrete results of the NExT program. And you have seen some of the examples above. I have no doubt that our collaboration will have significant transformational impact on the ground. We look forward to hearing from the various stakeholders represented here today, and hopefully we shall also have an opportunity to learn from each other as we strive to transform the lives of Kenyans. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a fruitful meeting.
Thank you, Ambassador. We will now then move to the next remarks from the chief guest, Professor Hamadi BOGA. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you very much, Dr. KEDERA. Her Excellency, the Ambassador to the EU, and all the other guests that are in this meeting. Let me take this opportunity to appreciate everyone who has spoken before me and the information that has been shared and the discussions that have proceeded before, and that's what is going on right now. Agriculture is very important, and especially the horticulture sector is very important because most of our foreign income earnings come from tea, and then the horticulture sector also plays a major role. Agriculture also continues to play a key role in the GDP, responsible for about 32% of the GDP. And during this time of the COVID pandemic, we have seen that agriculture has continued to power our economy and to support the livelihood of families. So it will continue to play a significant role in our lives and also in supporting the livelihoods of farmers. And that is why it's a big part of the Big Four agenda of His Excellency the President, where the focus is to support agriculture's contribution to GDP. And I think when we looked at the numbers last, we saw that the sector continues to grow. And I think I like this program as presented here. I think it's a very interesting program. 2 days ago, I visited Test Kenya Exporters. It's a small SME run by a lady somewhere in Kitengela. She deals with herbs. I just wanted to understand how she does it and how people, other women and youth could benefit from this. And I could see that a lot of insights are required for youth and women and our smallholder farmer to go into this sector. I was, of course, accompanied by FAO or a country rep because I wanted to sort of interest them to see how this kind of enterprise can be supported, because for them it's an unfamiliar program. They have mainly been dealing with food. But having seen now this COLEACP program, I see that the opportunity is there to bring this program and sensitize potential MSMEs who can benefit from this, and also sensitize the national government about the opportunities, as well as the county governments, so that they can take advantage of this. So I am really interested in understanding this program further, and Dr. KEDERA and the team that is running this, I think we will find time to engage a little bit further so that we can see how we can help in its implementation. I think it's very key. As a ministry, of course, we would like to support our farmers, and based on the agriculture sector transformation and growth strategy, we want to support them to diversify their income sources. We want to support them to increase their incomes And I think horticultural produce for export presents a real good opportunity for diversification of farm produce, as well as increasing income for farmers. Of course, we have to support them through good agricultural practices so that they can understand the requirements of the EU market, and especially support them around the issue of minimum residue levels for pesticides, which is a big problem. And in the past, as I have been here, I've seen a number of interceptions, mainly in coffee, or in some horticultural produce, and where traceability of the produce is very important, because then HCD or AFA, through one of its directorate, is able to trace backwards to see where the challenges are. So I really appreciate that there is a program to support farmers and to support our competent authorities and research organizations, so that we can improve on our activities in this sector. And this fits quite well with the aspirations of the government for the policy of food and nutrition security in the Big Four agenda, as well as in the agriculture sector transformation and growth strategy. So I think I really appreciate this, and welcome further collaboration with the program, and also continued collaboration with the EU in the other areas. We appreciate the support extended through IFAD for the e-voucher program, and also the programs that were recently signed, especially around supporting farmers who are affected by COVID. And the program is rolling out this rainy season, especially in parts of Western Kenya. And we look forward to closer collaboration as we implement the next project, so that we can help in attaining the targets and realizing the impacts that are intended for the project, so that we can impact on the lives of our farmers. So thank you very much, and ladies and gentlemen, and I appreciate everyone that has been in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. We will look forward to engaging with you further as we implement the activity. We've been doing it through your department of under your division of horticulture. So we will get to you directly with more information. At this point, I would like to welcome Clement TULEZI, who is the Vice Chair of the Horticulture Taskforce, to give the closing remarks, stroke vote of thanks. Clement.
Thank you, Dr. KEDERA. For us, it's a pleasure to be part of this program. The next program, Kenya, just goes on to intensify what we have been doing as a sector. We believe that the horticulture subsector is the fastest growing subsector in the country, influencing a lot of livelihoods and household incomes. With over 350,000 people employed directly within the subsector and influencing livelihoods of over 6 million people, we believe that horticulture has a central place within the Kenya's economy. We know that we can do better, but there are challenges and bottlenecks at the production and within the supply chain that we need to surmount. And therefore, when we have a program like this that comes in at a time like this, we believe that with the collaboration between the public and private sector, capacity building, addressing matters, SPS, logistics, and other market requirements, we believe we can be able to surmount these and make a bigger impact, even bigger than we have done. And therefore, we are so grateful that we have a program now before us that we shall be implementing as private sector and public sector collaboratively, and that will have a bigger impact on Kenya's economy and livelihoods. Mine is very simple, is just to thank those who have been on this call. I want to thank our chief guest, Professor Hamadi BOGA, the Principal Secretary, State Department of Crops Development and Agricultural Research in the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperative, for coming onto this call and for your remarks and encouragement. We promise that we'll work with your office to make sure that indeed what we have planned will become a reality. We also want to thank Her Excellency Katrin HAGEMANN, the acting head of delegation of the EU in Kenya, together with her team. I know quite a number of them that are on the call right now. And for generously providing funds to support the Next Kenya program. We are so grateful, and also for you to attend this session and for your remarks. Other representative of other embassies that have been on call, we say thank you for being with us. I think most important, we want to thank COLEACP, led by Jeremy KNOPS, the General Delegate of COLEACP, and also Dr. KEDERA, who is leading the Kenya office. Thank you so much for thinking through this idea, coming to us, and we've been able to craft this together. We own it collectively, and therefore, as we implement, we are so grateful that we can work with you, appreciating how you support the Kenya agricultural sector and specifically horticulture. My appreciation also goes to OWUOR, the chair of FPEAK, and also the board member of COLEACP. Thank you for your opening remarks that really underscored the environment in which we are working and how we can be able to turn this around. We are grateful also to our partners that we work with from government, KALRO, the Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization. We work with them closely. KEFIS, who is our inspector, we work with them closely. HCD, thank you so much. And PCPB, we are so grateful that you're on this call, and we are looking forward to engaging with you on this program. We also know that we had representatives of county governments. Thank you so much. And the county governments where we'll be working, we should be able to bring you on board, working with us very closely, collaborating around the critical areas that have been identified. Thank you so much for being part of the team. The universities and institutions of higher learning, we know there is a lot of knowledge that we need to put together through this program, and there will be a lot of learning around this, which we can be able to scale up through your input. I want to thank key players within the horticulture supply chain, certification bodies, suppliers, logistics, those who are involved in logistics, and a lot of people who support us within the supply chain. Thank you so much for coming on board, and we look forward to working with you through the program. My colleagues within the associations, FPEAK, FPC Kenya, Avocado Society of Kenya, and our members who this program is actually focused on. Thank you so much for being part of us. We look forward to working with you. Consultants who are on board, thank you so much. We also want to appreciate our international partners who were on this call and willing to work with us through this program. Thank you so much. I want specifically to highlight UNIONFLA, who have been very, very instrumental supporting us on matters of SPS with the EU. Thank you so much for coming on board. We look forward to working with you. With over 160 participants, I may not be able to mention everyone, but thank you so much, all of you. We look forward to further engagement and your input in this program so that we make it reality. So have a good day. Thank you so much. I want to turn it over to Dr. KEDERA again. Thank you.
Thank you, Clement. We are now moving to the next session, which is going to be on a question and answer and a press conference. At this point, we will be asking the panelists to join the press conference link and the other participants to remain. The drive, of course, is going to be a question and answer. The session is going to be led by Wester, Bruce, and Yesi. There were some questions that had come out earlier during the registration. How does the project intend to ensure the national government institutions, PCPB, KEFIS, AFA, HCD, and the counties work in harmony? The answer we've given, it is through the task force and looking at the bottlenecks, if there are challenges in terms of operation, through the task force that is going to be looked at and addressed accordingly. There was an issue, there was another question on post-harvest losses remaining a challenge. What is planned to ensure all actors in various value chains synchronize the interventions to increase value and the volumes? We are saying that we are looking at various value chains. We are looking at good agricultural practices and the various trainings that COLEACP has put together to inform the process. That is how the project intends to work with the various actors and in the various value chain. If you have good practices in place, that will address, and then coupled with a training. How does the project intend to improve food safety in the domestic market? Yes, working with the various value chains, working with, for example, RETRAC, which is the Association of Retailers. We hope to, which is the Association of Retailers is looking at how the KS 1758 will be domesticated. Of course, this is in conjunction with other development partners like Rockefeller, where we look at how to address the issues that touch on food safety. So that is all inclusive in the process. We are not going to work alone. We'll work in collaboration with other initiatives to ensure synergies and move towards the results. Those questions came from Professor Kibera of Prominent Consultants when he registered, I think 2 weeks ago for the activity. There are other questions that will come up that have been put in the chat. We are going to look at the various ones and we will provide the answers. Of course, a number of the things that we say will go through the task force. The chairman of the task force, Joshua Uluyali, is here. He is hearing. He'll be able to put it to the task force so that the issues are followed up accordingly. So at this point, I'll ask Wester to pick the lead in terms of the question and answer session and look at the various activities that will follow afterwards. Then we move to the press conference. We'll join you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. KEDERA. Good morning, everybody. The next few minutes, we will provide you with a short overview, practical overview of how you can access the NExT Kenya program, what are our leading principles, eligibility criteria, and what is the application process and potential areas for support. It will, of course, complement earlier remarks and conversations by Jeremy and by Chagema KEDERA. Afterwards, there's still room for a question and answer session. Questions can be put in the chat. There's a specific question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. So please add them there and we will respond to them afterwards or throughout the presentation. These sessions will be led by myself, Senior Project Manager for COLEACP based in the Brussels office, also by my colleague Bruce Chamjor of the Nairobi office, and Yesi Meyer, who has been working for COLEACP on Kenya for the past 10 years. Our leading principles, that is the next slide, is of course, as you have seen already in the previous presentations, our support is earmarked to the fruits and vegetables sector, mainly for our target operators. And for this specific NExT Kenya program, there's also a possibility for floriculture that is managed through the BMOs, through the sector.
Can you project the next slide, please? Webmaster? Thank you so much.
Thank you. COLEACP principally works throughout the supply chains, existing supply chains. And so accessing formal markets is a critical element for us. If there is an existing supply chain, also stakeholders are in a better position to finance and to maintain sustainable systems and also have a greater vested interest. Compliance, for example, is expensive, and for long-term sustainability, it must be resourced throughout the supply chain. By working through our target operators, it is also possible to reach out to all the players in the supply chain, smallholder, outgrowers, farm workers, backhouse workers, etc. But our main target of support for SMEs and producer groups is to companies within existing supply chains. And that can range from very small startup companies to also the very large established companies and exporters. COLEACP is using a demand-driven approach. So there's a lot of potential areas that we can tackle to assist SMEs and producer groups, stakeholders of the value chains, to become more competitive, resilient, and sustainable. But our driving force is that it should be demand-driven. Demand-driven, as it will result in a greater ownership and also sustainability on the longer term. We always look at having a participant approach, working together with our applicants to design a program that is most adapted to their unique position and situation. And we have a cost-sharing approach whereby also our applicant will have to invest time, resources into its own development. So look at us as a partner to assist in implementing innovation, in implementing sustainable systems that will help your organization, your company, your producer group to thrive and to be resilient and sustainable for the next years. Of course, local human resources are key for us. COLEACP is typically providing training, capacity building, and technical assistance, and that goes mainly through local human resources. So those resources are key. We are there to assist you together with local service providers, with local institutions to build that capacity so that all the skills and know-how will be captured within your own organization. There has been an acceleration on digital skills, digital anchorage of our trainings and our support. We are also now all participating, more than 150 participants in a digital event. So that's already a key success and shows as well that the digital anchorage will become much more important going forward. An important element of COLEACP support is that, as I mentioned, we are mainly looking at expertise, technical skills, training. We are not able to provide funding for operational costs, equipment, or infrastructure. That is part of the cost-sharing approach, and it will greatly help to secure sustainability over the longer term. Looking at sustainability, a longer term, it's also important to note that COLEACP will be there also for the long term. We try to look at the programs for our partners for a longer time. The current program still runs for 3 years, so we will have the opportunity to collaborate for a longer period of time. And of course, it can be complemented with other programs that COLEACP is implementing in Kenya. Working together will strengthen the partnership. It will strengthen also the implementation of concrete activities. And in the end, we all want a thriving agribusiness. So by working together with companies, with BMOs, with the enabling environment, with service providers, we believe that those are key areas for success in the sector. Finally, of course, we have to measure what we are doing, because by measuring, of course, we are able to assess if we have any effect on the operations, on an improvement, And so evaluating what we are doing by having some simple and measurable indicators, that is also crucial for our support. Next slide, please. Now, who is eligible for COLEACP support under the NExT Kenya program? On the left-hand side of the slide, you will see the different categories of potential beneficiaries, of potential partners under the NExT Kenya program. On the right-hand side, you will see other requirements. So as mentioned before, we operate in the horticultural value chain. It's mainly fruits and vegetables. Flowers, it is only supported throughout the BMOs. But if you fall within one of the categories on the left-hand side, so producing or exporting company or a cooperative in fruits and vegetable sector, it makes you eligible for the support. Also, as a service provider, we can assist to build your capacities to provide better services to your clients. If you are an NGO, an extension service, a support program, producer organization, professional association, we mentioned those before. Some frameworks for collaborations have already been signed with a number of associations. We know that there are other associations, so feel free also to apply for support to the NExT Kenya program. We look specifically also to existing training centers, universities or vocational schools to be able to collaborate more closely and also share our experience in terms of training methodology for the horticultural sector to have a lasting impact on the industry. Lastly, of course, also public sector, competent authority, or public-private dialogue platform are also welcome to apply for support, and we are able to support it. As mentioned before, a number of frameworks for collaboration have already been finalized. Of course, as the NExT Kenya program is a country-specific program, legal origin should be Kenyan. Of course, we only work with partners that have a legal registration and that are already active in the value chain, fruits and vegetables. Once you apply for support, we will also ask our companies, our applicants, to sign up to COLEACP Sustainability Charter. That Sustainability Charter is a simple set of 7 criteria that will assist to translate also a commitment into the sustainable practices. And of course, we would love to assist our applicants and our beneficiaries also to build their capacities and improve on one of the aspects of sustainability. And for that, of course, there's also a need to demonstrate the impact and to measure progress. The next slides on how you can practically apply for the program, the process will be presented by Bruce.
Thank you very much, Westa. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bruce Chemjor, Project Manager, NExT Kenya program, based in our Nairobi office. So how does one access the NExT Kenya program? So the first step would be to go to our e-services website or the dedicated NExT Kenya program site, where you will be directed to what you're seeing on your screen. And there are 3 documents that you will be required to send. So you would see categories of the documents that you need to fill according to the needs and the category of the organization that you're applying for. And also you will see the COLEACP membership form that you'll be required to commit and fill and also send. Also, part of the documentation that we require is a copy of the official document representing your legal entity as an organization. So you'll fill these 3 documents and they're in Word form. So for example, the request form is in Word form. So you do not need to worry about, scanning it. So you fill in your details and send it to the NExT Kenya at coleacp.org. And then next slide, please. So the application process will be once you've sent the 3 documents requested on the site that you'll be directed to. First of all, we will do a pre-analysis to ensure that It conforms to the eligibility criteria that West has just mentioned, that you're supporting produce of Kenyan origin, that you're within the fruits and vegetable value chain, and also that you've conformed and committed to sign the sustainability charter. And then after that, we'll do an analysis, get back to you as well, get to understand the needs that you're requesting for deeper. As you would see from the request form, details about the structure of the organization, how you link with the smallholder farmers, and how the capacity that you have to absorb our technical support. So these are the things that we will be looking at. Also, we shall come for a field visit just to see the operations within your setup, whether it's a packhouse facility or the field, just to have a feel of your challenges and how you do your operations. And this is also where we shall introduce our self-assessment system, which is a metric that measures different indicators on the environment. Here we'll look at soil and water, energy, how the business is looking to address challenges related to that, with a key focus on sustainability, issues to do with biodiversity. So these are the things that we shall be also doing, introducing to the business, because this will be used by the business for business continuity and also for continual improvement as we progress with the program within the 4 years. So after that, and we are satisfied that the request falls within our criteria and we're able to support, so in agreement together with the entity, we shall have or agree on a memorandum of understanding where both of us will be committed to take our roles until we complete the support that is requested. And also in this part, of course, will require commitment from the entity. So after that, we'll sign the MOU and then agree also on the action plans as requested. As you mentioned, some of the requests may not be feasible, and I think it has been mentioned that we do not support operational expenses related to equipment and infrastructure. So these are things that we do not support, but other support related to trainings, capacity building, technical support on the various teams will be supported. So after we have that memorandum understanding and we have set up an action plan of how we shall do the activity, then we'll proceed to actualize the activity. Next slide, please. Our intervention is actually built on or anchored in 3 pillars. Our sustainability charter, which has 7 key principles that when adhered to will help operators ensure that they comply with the regulations. And in this case, the local regulations, as well as the EU and the international SPS regulation, and also meet the buyer demands and be competitive and have good social and environmental practices. So that is one of the pillars that is actually anchored within our intervention efforts. Our second is our self-assessment system, which I've just mentioned, that would really is a metric really to guide the process of adopting good practices, also help in addressing the principles of the charter because it is anchored in that as well. Also, the third pillar of our support is our sustainability training system. The COLEACP training system, which has been proven, has begun in the early 70s, is one of the anchor, and actually the efforts that we all do in capacity building is anchored within our training. So aiming to build the capacity of the stakeholders and also the direct involvement, which is the service providers, experts, as well as the government competent authorities. Our areas are the 8 thematic areas. As you can see, we have sustainable production and trade. So issues to do with production, interventions to do with plant health, food safety, which is also anchored within our program. Also agricultural production and processing, social accountability, environmental management, business management, and training methodologies, as our COLEACP is a cascade system. So yeah, those are the areas that we'll be supporting, which is also driven by our areas of expertise, as mentioned by our Director General, Jeremy. And these are the market intelligence, technical assistance, training, innovation and development, information and communication, advocacy, and business development. So all this driven by our areas of expertise will allow us to deliver on these areas of support that we'll be offering to our beneficiaries. Next slide, please. So we have our digital training program and tools, which have already been initiated even before the COVID pandemic hit. And of course, it has been accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic, and it is on 3 levels, our e-learning platform. We have a self-study course whereby an individual can access our online platform and access the courses on the different thematic areas. And we have 3 basic levels. We have the basic, intermediate, and advanced. So I would encourage us, just after this session, you can as well register yourself in our online portal, whether an expert, whether an SME owner or a farmer, to be able to access our different thematic areas. Another level that we do offer is the digital collective trainings. And this is where we group together different companies or organizations and have a dedicated tutor through interactive online sessions, live session, as well as exercises from a distance with different contents as per our areas of support. We also have our resources portal, e-learning portal, where you'll have the different tutorials, our different guides on the different value chains that we support on the fruits and vegetable e-library, and also the different photos there to appreciate just the industry and the activities that we are doing. So just to end that, then I will end with a quote from Rudyard Kipling, who said, "This is the opening verse of the opening chapter of the book of endless possibilities." And as Next Kenya program indeed offers endless possibilities for our horticulture sector, particularly fruits and vegetable, as well as the floriculture, for us to be able to continue to remain competitive as an industry. So I will welcome my colleague Yesi Meyer to take on the Q&A session. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for staying with us all throughout the presentations, because we have been together now for more than 1 hour. What I will do is I will look at the questions written down in the Q&A and take some of them and answer them. So we had a question from Rosemary Muita. Would it be possible for COLEACP to support SMEs in agribusiness export to get international certification like Global Gap and GRASP? And so as Wester explained, we respond to the needs of private sector companies and organized farmers groups. So if the need is for Global Gap and GRASP certification, we do support this. And what we do when we support this is we provide training, technical assistance to implement the Global Gap standard or the GRASP add-on, and then eventually even cover the audit costs for the first time. After this, it becomes a running cost for the entity. Would it be possible to work together with KIFIS to make it easier? So as Dr. KEDERA explained, yes, we will definitely work together with KIFIS. KIFIS is one of the main beneficiaries of the Next Kenya program. But what we do with KIFIS is support KIFIS to better execute its mandate. The main mandate of KIFIS is, of course, the phytosanitary inspections at exit point, etc. So to my understanding, KIFIS is not involved in Global Gap and GRASP. Then another question we have is from, let me check, I'm scrolling down. How is the domestic industry going to be included and involved in the program? Dr. KEDERA answered this question. We will have activities with ReTrack and in collaboration with Rockefeller Foundation. And what we will do more precisely is with some of the ReTrack members, one of the retailers in Kenya, is to try to set up food safety compliance using the KS 1758, but in a sustainable way. It should be embedded in the business model of the retailers to make it feasible. Then there is a question on if we work with NEMA. And of course, NEMA is an important institution in Kenya, especially in the horticultural sector. And we already support various companies that want to implement the NEMA requirements. We provide training and technical assistance. We could provide capacity building to NEMA if this is requested, so they can always contact us. How do I get, this is a question from Newton Uyugi. How do I get included in the program as a small-scale farmer, working with other smallholder farmers and women groups in the production of French beans for export? So this is a very relevant and good question. So to reach out to this type of stakeholders, we work in two ways, either through an exporting company that will train and provide technical assistance to the farmers, or directly with the group, if it is an organized group and they have internal relays for knowledge sharing and training, for instance. So do contact the team in Nairobi, Newton. We have provided the links. I'm scrolling down. An anonymous attendee. How many beneficiaries of the program are you looking to support access to markets by the end of the project? So whenever we roll out such a technical assistance program, you have two levels of beneficiaries. The direct beneficiaries, and those are the beneficiaries with which we will have activities, sign MOUs. But we also have what we call the indirect beneficiaries. For instance, if we sign an MOU with an exporting company, that company works with small-scale growers or outgrowers. And when we support the company, through the company, we support also the outgrowers. So for direct beneficiaries in the private sector, we are looking at approximately 100 MOUs that we will design and roll out with companies, organized farmers, etc., consultants. How do you plan to involve the export promotion agency in the interventions? So we have already had various meetings with KEPROBA, and we will support KEPROBA to execute its role and mandate for the horticultural sector. I'm scrolling down. Does COLEACP have any operations in Tanzania? Yes, we have. Not under the NExT Kenya program, but under the all ACP programs, Fit for Market and Fit for Market SPS. And so in the chat, we can bring you in contact with our Tanzania team. Does it assist upcoming avocado growers because of various gaps in the exportation? As I indicated, we work with avocado stakeholders. We will design the avocado good practice guide through the Avocado Society, through the other BMOs. We will reach out to their members with technical capacity building, etc. And we can directly support organized avocado growers. So do contact us. I'm scrolling down. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can still take a number of questions. So please shoot in the chat or raise your hand and talk to me.
I see there have already been some other questions that are still open on the chat. Some of them have already been responded to, of course.
Which one?
There's a question on local markets, which has been addressed by KEDERA and Yessi, working with the Retailers Association to try to assist stakeholders to implement the KS 1758 standard. And of course, also the work we are doing to support companies, producers, and stakeholders on the export value chain in terms of food safety also has a spillover effect on local markets. That is something that we have observed, and there are more and more questions related to local food safety and local markets. So we hope that by the proxy of free track retailers and together with some sector associations, we will also be able to pilot some of these initiatives on the local market, so we can have some results there as well. And based on the findings of those pilots, that could then further inform other programs.
Yes, I see here a question from Mrs. Wanjiru Nderi. How can the horticultural sector broaden its focus beyond horticultural specific crops to include other crops that are grown in Kenya with a focus to value addition? So we do support entities that are into processing. Processing is key to reduce post-harvest losses and add value. So those entities are eligible for the NExT Kenya support, but of course, the scope of the program is mainly horticulture, fresh fruit and vegetables, or processed fruits and vegetables. I hope I answered your question. Do you see other questions, Wester?
There is a question from Franco Bure on false codling mod for roses and chilies. He mentioned that it is a big threat to market access.
Yes, one of the key focuses for the NExT Kenya program is addressing bottlenecks for trade. And one of the key bottlenecks for horticultural trade with the EU from Kenya are these interceptions, the plant health interceptions. And we're looking at false codling moths for roses, for chilies, but also MRL interceptions. And then we're looking mainly at French beans and peas, when unfortunately we are facing again an increased control regime of 10%. This is very unfortunate. And so we will, and we are already, and we will continue to address these bottlenecks. And how do we do this? We work together with KFIS, we work together with the private sector to establish what we call pest management protocols, such as the FCM protocol for roses. And we roll out coaching and training for companies to better implement this protocol. And also in parallel, we work with PCPB and the Minor Crops Committee to create access to new PPPs, new plant protection products. Because for some of the pest crop combinations, we have a lack of registered products in Kenya. And so with our research and innovation team, we will address these gaps and run trials to have new products on the list. So we are running trials on avocado, flowers, and chilies. I hope this answered your question, Frank. Any other questions?
There's a few other questions popping in. Some of them have already been responded. So if you are a target operator in the horticultural value chain, being a producer group, exporting company, service provider, etc., we would strongly suggest you to get in touch with our team in Nairobi. Send us an email, give us a call so that we can get to know your organization as well, and then we could see together how we could find an agreement going forward and what kind of trainings and technical assistance you could benefit for.
It's a nice question from Kemuma, from Zuriel Fresh Farm. We have not met yet and we have not collaborated yet, but do contact us. Organic farming is an important segment in the horticultural sector because it is very sustainable environmentally wise, but also we have good prices on the international market. So COLEACP, through the NExT Kenya program, will have a specific focus on organic farming. And what we typically do when we support companies that want to venture into organic production is to assess, first of all, the technical feasibility. For some of the crops, it is not easy to grow it within the organic regulation because you have other rules for crop protection and fertilization. And then, of course, we will provide training on what is the organic standard about, what do you need to comply with, what are the compliance criteria for the standard you have selected. And then, of course, we can even provide assistance to implement the organic standard and even fund the first audit. So that is exactly what we do with regards to organic farming. So do contact our team and we can get the ball rolling.
I also see a question here on agricultural extension, and it reads, agricultural extension remains critical to meeting our export requirements following the evolution of agriculture in Kenya. Farmers have been left with no extension support. Is there a chance for COLEACP to support SOCA and other organizations that work to support good agricultural practices in the country? Yeah, just to respond to this, I think we're already working with partners, and especially UNIDO's markup project, and we're doing a survey of the agricultural extension service to see challenges and opportunities and where we can come up with interventions to solve the challenges that we are seeing on this area of extension services. Thank you. I think that answers that.
And we are also in communication with SOCA. Ricky is even on the call, I would say. So we will collaborate.
I will respond to two other questions regarding consultants, service providers. There has been a question from Monica Mburu and also from Peter Kanyarati. So we work with local service providers to implement most of our activities with our partner companies and the wider environment. How to apply for those kind of to be eligible as a service provider? That process is informed through a tendering process. So keep an eye also on our COLEACP website. You will get updates in case there are new tender processes that are opened up. So you can also apply and offer your services throughout our programs. But of course, the tender process is one of the critical steps before we can use a service provider to implement and use their services. In terms of collective training programs for our service providers, this will also be part of the NExT Kenya program, depending on the needs that are identified by the various companies and the skill sets that we can help to build. There will be some trainings regarding the business side, and we will also continue to enlarge our pool of experts to have more exposures to the digital training side. So that is a process that has been started within COLEACP with the support of other programs, but we will definitely also use that one and use the skills acquired under the NExT Kenya program. Other benefits of joining the COLEACP programs, and then also specifically the NExT Kenya program, is to be part of the COLEACP association and to be part of our network. So besides implementing these specific programs, of course, we have linkages with other programs. There was already a reference of the market project, also financed by the European Delegation. There are other programs, service providers, financial institutions that we are engaging with. So if there's any opportunities to access other programs, to access external funding through financial institutions or financial programs, of course, we will not hesitate to share that as well. So it's a warm call for all potential interested companies, service providers, associations, and other stakeholders to get in touch with us, get in touch with our office in Nairobi. We will be able to explain you more in detail how we could potentially support your individual organization, your individual group, your individual company, and then we can have a sustainable and resilient agribusiness sector in Kenya.
I see here a question.
Maybe we take one more question. Yes, please go ahead.
I will answer two more questions. There's a question from James Wawero. I'm a chairman for United Growers Self-Help Group in Laikipia. Is there a way we can be assisted with funding for startup? My farmers really need assistance. So access to finance, James, is an issue throughout the horticultural value chain, be it on company level or outgrower level or cooperative level. The NExT Kenya program knows this, but we will not directly provide soft loans or grants. That is, other programs are doing this. What we will do is to strengthen your capacities to get access to finance and to better understand the business model. So on outgrower level, we do have training on cost-benefit calculations. It's important as a farmer to know the cost-benefit and cash flow issues. To better understand the farming operations, we might try to make linkages between the group of farmers and microfinance institutions in the same county. And even as Wester indicated, we will be rolling out from September onwards a set of training packages related to business management, and access to finance and financial management will be part of that. So do contact our team and we can then include you in these activities.
Just a quick one, there's a question by Newton Oyugu. Is there a cost for joining the program? Absolutely not, there is no cost, and the procedure has been described. Just go to our Kenyan website or the e-services website and send in the necessary documents. There is no cost at all.
Yes, and then there was a question on the avocado oil machines. Let me look, where is it? How do you support buyers of avocado oil extraction machines? So the decision to buy such a machine should be embedded in the business model of the entity. It should be embedded in the strategy. So what we can do for entities that are envisaging processing of avocado, producing oil, is to work on the business model and the business plan. But we will not facilitate directly buy equipment, as Wester already explained in our eligibility criteria.
Yes, but then again, feel free as well to reach out and share information to our team in Nairobi. As much as we are an association and we are, of course, limited to our eligibility criteria, one of the main takeaways as well from the work that we're doing across the industry in ACP countries and across various programs is to provide information. So if there is a question then afterwards from a person who needs more information on certain equipment, we could definitely provide some linkages, of course, without any guarantee to buy or on the quality. And also have a look on our website. You can subscribe to our mailing list. And so part of the work that our communication team is doing is to provide regular updates on changes in the regulatory environment. There will also be updates on the activities that we're implementing throughout NExT Kenya, but also our other programs in other countries. So our intention is also that our stakeholders access information that will be of benefit to them, even if it is not covered directly with the specific support throughout the program. Information sharing is one of the important elements that we do with most of our stakeholders.
Yes, so we do work in Cameroon. That was a question from Ayuka Fombong. Maybe we can in the chat put the context of our team covering the Cameroon operations. Then there was a question on access to new PPPs from Lee Kai Gai. So I explained it. We work closely together with PCPP and the Minor Crops Committee, and they establish priorities, areas where you do need in Kenya new PPPs. And based on that priority list, we will run the trials. So for this year, it's mainly avocado, chilies, and roses. Yeah, we have Grace Muchemi. She has a question on the areas we will work with PCPB. We have a long list of activities in the MOU with PCPB, but it's quite technical. I don't know if this is the place to explain all the activities. But the main entry point is strengthen the capacity of PCPP to execute the mandate. And the trials on new PPPs are only part of the MOU with PCPP.
I think we have covered most of the questions. There may be some questions that have slipped through the maze In that case, we already apologize. There have been a lot of questions coming in, but we also want to thank you for your active participation. I see that we're still with a lot of people on board, so that is very much appreciated. And to take it further, of course, we are here to start implementing activities in Kenya. Even if you're in a current lockdown situation, it will not stop us to already provide you the necessary assistance, information, etc. So I would suggest you to get in touch with our team as soon as possible. So that is nextkenya@coleacp.org. And otherwise, feel free just to browse through our website. There's a lot of information there. The self-study courses on our training platform are also freely accessible for all of you. You just have to register on it. So I hope that this will only be the start of a new journey with many of you, and probably also on a continuous basis or continued collaboration also with many of you. So as much as we have been involved in the industry in Kenya for the past 20 years, we hope to be able to do so and to continue to do so for the next 20 or more years. So with this, I would like to thank all of you for your active participation, your attendance, and we hope to make the next program as a success. And definitely we will keep you also up to date on any other evolutions, trainings, webinars, etc. Thank you very much for your time and contributions, and we say kwaheri, see you soon. Thank you everybody, bye bye.